I'm sorry, I'm a really bad influence. If you want to skip this video, go ahead. This lighting is seriously terrible, but you guys are gonna have to live with it. It's 9:20 p.m. at night, so I can't really fix it. So as most of you probably know, I'm a college student, university in Canada, technically. I think they call it college in like the US or some other places or something. So I think it's on YouTube, universally called college. So I'm just gonna call it that. So today's video will be about how to read more in college, because once you reach post-secondary, it becomes very obvious how hard it is to find time to read. And so these are kind of like some of the methods I normally use. Some of them, not really, but some of them more or less I use. They're on my laptop here, so let's just get started, shall we? So the first one I have is one that I've been doing more often now since I became a college student, and it's read on your phone. So I have a library card. Also, I'm really sorry if you can hear the footsteps upstairs. Again, something else you're gonna have to live with. Reading on my phone has definitely become something I've done more often now. Like, it's just so easy to carry around. Like, you bring it everywhere with you, right? Like, just to do phone calls and stuff. But if you could read on it anytime, that's a game changer if you're a reader. The way I read on my phone, I don't personally have Kindle or anything. I am planning on getting one, but I don't have it right now. But the way I read on my phone right now is that I have Libby and I have a library card, so I kind of just borrow books from Libby. Libraries are technically free. Like, just check locally if you have a library. I feel like with ebooks too, you sometimes read a lot quicker depending on what sort of mood you're in. And again, phones are just so easy to bring around. You can just whip it out anytime you feel like reading. Plus, there's so many options on your phone too. Like, if you just borrow from the library, or even if you use Kindle on your phone, like, I think you can do that, I'm pretty sure. And it's obviously like less weight, because then you won't have to bring a book with you everywhere you go. The second method we have is one I kind of just mentioned. It's carry a book or Kindle everywhere you go, which means adding on the weight. It's worth it if you want to read, right? Again, personally don't have a Kindle, but I did used to carry a book around with me everywhere I went, and whenever I had free time, immediately pull out the book and start reading. I mean, if you want to be a mysterious girl in a library or a park bench, that is a pretty good way to do it, I guess. Plus, obviously, there are people out there who don't like reading on electronics. I've gotten used to it just for like the sake of reading anywhere I go at any time, but sometimes physical books are better, you know? Like, it's just the feeling. And so you could carry a book around with you everywhere you go the way I used to do it. I have like this bag I carry around normally, and I would just put my book in it. Like, just get a bag big enough to carry your book in, or maybe your backpack or something. Listen, if you want to do it, you'll try to find any way to do it, okay? And if you're uncomfortable with carrying a physical book around with you and reading it in public, then maybe cover the cover with a piece of paper. I used to do that all the time, not because I was embarrassed of the cover, because I would break my covers all the time. Like, I was very rough with books as a kid, not gonna lie. My mom used to do it too. I think that's where I learned it, like covering the book cover with just a blank piece of paper, and it's just like no one can see the cover. So if you feel like reading anywhere you go with a physical book, carry a book with you, and if you feel uncomfortable with the cover, just cover it with a piece of paper and no one will see, no one will care. Next one we have is kind of a bad one, and this definitely applies to college students. It's read in class. I've been doing this more often, okay? I sort of started doing it a little bit in first year, and then as second year came, started doing it more and more. It's a very bad habit, I know. It's just like there are some classes where you don't learn by hearing the teacher talk. Obviously, you can study after the class, but while you're sitting in the class, you can read so you don't get too bored, right? And it's just like, if you sit all the way in the back of the classroom, obviously the teacher isn't gonna notice if you like whip out a book or Kindle. So like, no harm, no foul if the teacher doesn't find out. I'm sorry, I'm a really bad influence. If you want to skip this video, go ahead. Next one we have, it kind of applies to reading in class, and it's reading on your laptop in class. This is how I don't get the teacher to catch me if I am sitting in the front row. I pull out like my Libby account on my laptop, and I split my screen in half, and then I just start reading on one screen, and if the teacher walks by, I cover it with my other half of the screen. Like, it's so easy. Like, look, one click, two click, there, I'm on. Even if I'm in the very front of the classroom, I still do this. But also at the same time, you kind of have to like remember that university professors mostly just don't care. Like, you really have to pay attention to yourself if you want to succeed in a class. Again, people learn in different ways. Yeah, I'm a really bad influence. If parents saw this video and they knew that their kids were watching this, they would probably not want their kids to be friends with me. Next one we have is read in between classes. So like, obviously there's breaks in between classes, so like if you're struggling to find time to read, you can read in between classes. Like, I do it all the time, even if I have to study, which is like really bad. I'm not the best at studying. If I'm not studying anyway, may as well just read a book, you know? If I have the free time in between like a few hours when I have no class, may as well do it, right? This is also why like maybe you should start reading on your phone more, because in between classes, if I am free, I can just whip out my phone, start reading. Next one we have is one I don't normally use, but it's reading with audiobooks or listening to audiobooks, I guess. Personally, I don't process information too well when a person's talking. I have to read something, but audiobooks are really good just during like any time of the day, like when you're cooking, when you're walking to class, when you're on the bus to class, maybe when you're in class and you don't want to pay attention to the teacher. Literally anything you do, you can listen to an audiobook if you're willing to do that. I don't know, again, just do whatever you're comfortable with. If you don't like audiobooks, literally just ignore this segment of the video. But they are like really useful, and it's just like, it's useful when it comes to multitasking. Again, you can literally just do it when you're doing like anything throughout the day. Also, they can go by really quickly. Like you can put it on different speed levels, right? I personally put it on somewhere in between 1.5 and 2 times the speed because audiobook readers just read a bit too slow for my liking, so I do put the speed on quite high. But it's pretty useful for getting through a book quickly, especially if you don't have time, and it's just useful if you don't have time to like pick up an actual book. Next one we have is set a specific hour after school to start reading. So it's just like, if you don't have time during school to read, just set a specific hour where you work and then there's like a free hour where you can read, because you obviously do have to do the work in university. Like you can't just fool around all the time. Like maybe even taking a break in between your work, like do work, read for a bit, and then do your work again. I always try to set a bit of time every day just to do reading because I love to do it so much and I want to do it. It's just if I have something else to do that I need to prioritize over reading, then I'll only leave like even the tiniest bit of time to read, because doing schoolwork is good and all, obviously. Like if you want to succeed in university, you really do have to work hard at it, but it's also just like you should try to set aside like time for your hobbies, because I personally go crazy when I'm only studying every single day of the week. Most people are probably the same. Next one we have is, it kind of relates to the last one I just mentioned. It's study harder in the beginning of the day and read later at night, or do the opposite, you read in the morning and then study late at night. I personally am not a morning person, so I could probably never do this one. So I study when I need to, and then at night I kind of just leave the entire rest of the night just to solely read. This is basically the same as like the last one I mentioned, but it's just like the last one I mentioned is you have to leave aside time to read. This one, it's more like you kind of stop at a certain time of the day and you just read or do whatever you want for the rest of the day. Although if you're like me and you're not a morning person, you might stay up until like 3 a.m. in the morning even if you have class the next day, but don't mind that. You'll catch up on your sleep eventually when the weekend comes. Or I guess another way you could do this is you can just study for the 5 like main days of the week and then leave the weekend to read. That's sometimes also what I do if I have like a big test coming up or something. Next one we have is wake up earlier in the morning and start reading. This also relates to the last one I just read, but it's just like some people really do wake up at like 5 in the morning just to read. Again, could never do that, not a morning person, but I think this is like a pretty effective method because they do say that people who wake up earlier, they obviously get more things done. Like I wish I could do this honestly, but it's just like in the morning my brain does not function. I guess this one you could also do the opposite, wake up really late and then read really late into the morning. That was probably not very good, but the waking up early one I think is good. Next one we have is actually the last one, and it's find books you want to read to motivate yourself, because obviously you do get into like reading slumps. I guess this is like similar, like if you get into a reading slump, just go back to the books that you like, or like find different genres, switch up genres, go back to a genre you like. I personally very recently got into mystery and it's been motivating me to read a lot more even when I should be studying. Like seeking out new genres to read is just so fun, and then also like going back to read genres that you're familiar with and books you know you like that you're familiar with. Also authors, finding different authors to read is so good because obviously everyone has tiny differences in their writing styles, so like finding different authors could probably also motivate you. I do know in college too that some people get too tired to read, or like find that they don't really have the motivation to read after like a really long day of school. So like finding books you know you'll like and like you think you'll like might be a good motivation. Like even in high school when the work started getting harder, I knew people who like stopped reading because they just didn't feel like it anymore because the schoolwork got so hard. But then once they found books that like motivated them to read, they started wanting to do it more. I feel like it's like a universal thing with readers. It's just like they kind of stop at some point, but then they find something and then they become obsessed again. That's kind of what happened with me in high school too. I became so bored and then I found this one book that I wanted to read and then it kept making me want to read even more. But yeah, I think that's all. I know this was a really short video. This isn't going to take me long to edit it at all, but I kind of just wanted to put this out there in the world because there are a lot of people obviously who lose motivation to read when they get into college or university or whatever. And it's just like I want to encourage people to read because I feel like it's like such a fun experience, like just discovering new books that you like. And it's also just like a good break from school, you know? Like school isn't everything. Like you do need to go out there, find new hobbies and stuff, find new experiences, just to like balance everything out. I don't know. I hope this video might help some of you who are in college or university right now. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!